I woke up this morning and it was one of those magical winter days. The sun is brilliant, the air kind of crisp, maybe a little too chilly for me. It was -8. And here I sit now in my little house on my little couch with my little dog Brekkie, just basking in the sunlight. Never would I have imagined I could be here 5 years ago. But yes, I've been in this house for 5 years now. And every day it reminds me I have things to share, stories to tell. That's what I'm about here in this channel, and I'm going to begin with my story. So here we go. Do you remember back in the day when almost every woman you knew, it was a woman thing, not a guy thing, they worried that they could become a bag lady out on the street with nothing much around them, feeding the pigeons, no resources, nothing, no one in their lives, practically erased. Every woman I knew had that fear somewhere. I did too. But, I really didn't anticipate it could happen to me. Sure, I had that anxiety, but to me, not really at all. You see, I was a professional person. I worked, college educated, actually a lot more than that, but yeah, I had a lot of education. I figured I'd cruise through a career. I'd retire and everything would be hunky-dory after that. I'd be in a happy old age. But that's not what happened. I didn't anticipate that I might have hurdles in my life, but I did. Some of them have been really big. I never expected that. I never planned for it. And so I found myself home distressed. Sure, I had a few things. I'd accumulated stuff from my years of being. But I had no place to call my own, at least any longer. Back in the day, I did. I had no place for me. At the time I got this house, I had had a history of insecure housing. You'd never guess, but I did. I had lived in Walmart parking lots in my car. So many parking lots. I once registered to vote with my residence in a Walmart parking lot while I was working. I stayed with my parents, I stayed with a colleague, all kinds of places. One fall, I camped high in the Cascades at the most magnificent spot. It was by a lake, and every night I'd watch the alpenglow on the mountains. Finally, the winter came in and I had to move down to the valley. And yes, I was commuting to work all that time. This is Brekkie. He's my co-host. You'll see him every once in a while. A bit later, a charity organization helped me out. They gave me a room in an apartment building that was on the wrong side of the tracks. It was on the wrong side of the tracks for a very good reason, as I soon discovered. I shared a common area with a bunch of men. There was them and there was me. They were creepy looking men. I was scared out of my wits, freaked out. I had never been around men like that before. I had always kept my distance. They were the kind of guys I wanted to keep my distance from. Yeah, but there I was. And this was the place I was given to have a room. And I was grateful for that, but gosh, I was terrified. Now, an interesting thing happened at the very beginning of my stay. They told me they could see I wasn't like them at all. Yeah, duh. But they'd have my back. And I could tell by looking at them that would work out okay for me. And it did. And I got used to them. They never gave me a hard time. And no one hassled me there. No one. I figured they were taking care of me. It turns out they were all felons on probation. And there was a reason we were on the other side of the tracks. They had to be kept away from the general mix of the population for one reason or another. But yeah, they were pretty scary looking. It got to the point where I was living in an old railroad hotel. You might be familiar with those from old black and white movies. People traveled a lot by train in those days, and you could be traveling and then you got tired and you wanted to go somewhere to spend the night. So you'd hop off at the station and you'd go across the street and there'd be a hotel there. Or maybe you had to change trains, something like that. Anyway, I stayed in one of those hotels. Actually, I lived there. I lived there for many years. Those were very basic kinds of hotels. You had a room for the night, that was all you needed. Maybe a meal in the morning, that was it. Now, this hotel, probably like many of them, hadn't been renovated for generations, really generations. Perhaps the bigger rooms down on the first floor, but not really the whole hotel. Definitely not the wing where I lived. It smelled musty, grubby, down at the heel, worn out. All night the trains would go, all night and day. When they passed through, you know how noisy they could be? The hotel would kind of shudder. And then, bam, bam, bam. It was a quite depressing place to live. I don't know what I would have done if the people hadn't been really nice. I don't mean my fellow hotel livers, but the people who ran the hotel. They were really nice to me. But I will tell you, that hotel was in dire shape. At any rate, I had a little room there. That was all I could really afford. And by little, I mean it was barely bigger than my bed. I didn't have room for any furniture. I had some bins with my stuff in, that was it. I had my own bathroom, that was really nice. But it was a bit quirky. You had to sit sideways on the toilet. I'm not kidding. Sideways on the toilet. I think showers in that hotel were an afterthought. And so they had to make room for the shower in my bathroom. And that meant it had to go where your knees go when you're sitting on the toilet. So yeah, you had to sit kind of sideways. I shared a kitchen in that place with maybe 30 others. It wasn't ideal, but it was fine. It kept me healthy. I was able to make fresh food. And so it was good enough. I was warm in winter, cool in summer. That was paid for with my rent. So there were good things about it. Yeah, not ideal, not ideal. It was depressing. It really was. I was 65 already. What was I going to do at 70, 80, 90? What was I going to do? I had this idea that maybe I could qualify for senior housing. I'd have to come to the top of a list somewhere, but maybe I could. There was no certainty in that. There's a lot of competition for those spaces. And I really needed some certainty in my life. So I was pretty desolate. I lived on the third floor of that building, kind of under the roof. And I'd watch out of those grimy windows because there was a community of pigeons out there. And I got kind of fascinated watching them. They would get together and they'd yak a bit. Yak, 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 yak. They did a lot of that. They really enjoyed each other. Then they'd fly off, get something to eat, come back, sun themselves on the roof. It was like that, year after year. But one day I was kind of watching more closely, and I noticed they disappeared under the roof. So I looked, and I saw, oh, a whole row of holes in the rotten timbers holding up the roof. It was like a DIY dovecote. They had drilled holes in there. And they were hopping in and out. They'd hunker down in there for the winter, and then they'd pop out for food. And that explained why I always had so much racket in the space above my room. It was those pigeons, they were getting their jollies, I guess. when I saw how rotten those timbers must be and how they were now like Swiss cheese, I knew that building was not going to last very long. In fact, inside, it felt like you could just give it a shove and the whole thing would fall over. This just made me more desperate. And so I watched the pigeons. I watched them for 5 years. 5 years. That's how long I was there. One day, in my distress, my universe changed. It was like suddenly I got sprinkled with magic. Totally out of the blue. I was sitting on my bed, browsing the internet. There was nothing really to do in that place except access the internet, the very slow internet. And there was nowhere else to be in my room except on the bed. So I was browsing away. And those rooms were not at all soundproof, not at all. I don't think very secure either, but yeah, they were not soundproof. And I could hear the squeaky wheels of the housekeeping cart. Normal thing, every day, same time. And I heard the housekeepers chit-chatting. They got along really well, so they were chit-chatting, keeping themselves interested between cleaning the toilets, vacuuming the carpets, all of that. At any rate, I overheard them. And what did I pick up? One of them said, "I'm getting a house today." Just like that. Just kind of relaxed, not excited, nothing. "I'm getting a house today." And I thought, sitting there, how marvelous. She's getting a house today. She's a housekeeper. She's a housekeeper. She's a housekeeper getting a house. That moment, it set my brain whirling. Yes, I had some other things going in my head about housing. I had researched many, many possibilities, but this was the moment when they all came together. When I heard that housekeeper say she was getting a house, I thought, well, yeah, I'm a working gal. Maybe I can get one. I jumped on that train and I ran with it. That night, the next day, I was hell-bent on getting a house. And I found out very soon it was very likely I could get one. Now, I didn't get this house right away. I didn't even envision this house right away. But I did have the idea that I could get a house. I had to qualify, and I can talk more about that in other videos. Actually, almost everything I have in this video, I'll elaborate at length in other videos. But yes, I did have to qualify to get a house, and I did qualify. I knew that very soon. It was so wonderful. I don't know how to explain it. It was 20 months or so before I moved in here. That was a long process, and it was really difficult. I will tell you, I could never have done it without all kinds of people helping me out. I really didn't do this project alone. I had people from government departments, regional housing agencies, builder, lawyer, all kinds of folks being really generous with their time and their skill. It was very special. I knew how special it was. And I also realized how much information I was gathering in my head. So what I did was I started to write a blog. I opened a website. And I wrote in that blog almost every day. I wrote about everything, how I got a lot, the different phases of the design project, how I financed, all kinds of stuff. Everything, blow by blow. And I must have had 150, 200 posts. I had photos. I worked really hard on it because I felt the information I had was so valuable. And I also felt I'm not a special person. I didn't get some magical gift from the universe that's not available to anyone else. I'm not singled out for this. I need to share so other people can have this opportunity as well. That's what I was about. At any rate, life got in the way. I moved in here and I forgot to pay the website bill. So poof, there it went, all of it, all of those posts, all of that detail, all of that hard work. I tried to resurrect it, but it just didn't feel the same. and I couldn't get back into it. So I put aside the whole idea now for several years. But last fall, I suddenly, magically, I don't know what, decided, oh, I'll make videos. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have never been a video kind of gal. I know nothing about making videos. Yeah, I've had an iPhone for a few years now, but have I ever pushed the video button? Hardly no. Never. Actually, I did once that I really remember. My puppy was close to flunking puppy kindergarten. I never knew that could happen, but he was pretty close. And I just thought it was hilarious. And the trainer, not so much. But anyway, I wanted to record the whole event, and I went to push the photo button and realized that wasn't going to do it. So I pushed the video button instead, and I have that little video. But that's almost the only time I had found a use for a video. And here I am. And gosh, I'm over 70 now. I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's where I need your help, because I'd really like to start this channel. I'd like to be talking about all kinds of things that have to do with having a home, for seniors, being solo, energy efficiency, budgets, financing, qualifying, so many things. And really, I'd like to start a community. I'd like us to be talking about this stuff, sharing ideas. In fact, as I think about it, if you have ideas for this channel, write them in the comments, because I'd love to hear them. And if you have advice, yeah, please pass it on. As I say, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just winging it here. And it's a big risk, because I'm really putting myself out there. I've never done anything like this before. At any rate, I hope you like my story, and I hope you like my channel. Hit that subscribe button if you could. Then you can hear about my future videos, how I develop some of these topics, and I could use a little bit of encouragement too as I go along, so a like would really be nice for me, if you could give me one. That's enough for me for now, but we'll talk soon, all right? See you then.